Informative and interesting times for the headlines. A magnitude 5.5 earthquake hit Sarangani, Davao Occidental Friday morning at 10:33 according to PHIVOLCS. A deeply divided Congress formally opens a new public phase of its corruption investigation into President Donald Trump as lawmakers vote for the first time to advance the impeachment process targeting the U.S. president.
It does so for the purpose of...
And China warns it will not tolerate any challenge to Hong Kong's governing system as it lays out plans to boost patriotism in the city and change how its leader is chosen or removed after months of pro-democracy protests. And wildfires are raging across the Pantanal tropical wetlands in southern Brazil, one of the most biodiverse areas in the world and a major tourist destination. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us. And now to the news. A magnitude 5.5 earthquake hit Sarangani, Davao Occidental on Friday, 10:30 a.m., according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. It had a depth of 33 kilometers and its epicenter was located at 334 kilometers southeast of Sarangani, Davao Occidental.
Sobra kasi ng lakas ng lindol. Hindi na namin alam kung ano intensity yun.
Oo.
Kaya yung nag-advise yung kapitan namin na kung hindi na kaya talaga, kung hindi na kaya, kailangan na talagang bumaba. Yung mga sa amin, yung mga lupa namin, marami na landslide at saka nabibiyak yung lupa.
The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, said aftershocks are expected but it will not cause damage. On Thursday, October 31, a gymnasium in Barangay Batasan in Makilala collapsed due to the magnitude 6.5 tremor that also struck Cotabato. The magnitude 6.5 earthquake was centered in Tulunan, but it affected neighboring areas. Now, the quake damaged several buildings in Mindanao, particularly in Davao City, Kidapawan City, and Magsaysay, Davao del Sur, among other areas affected. Thursday's tremor was the third strong earthquake to hit Mindanao in October this year. The first powerful quake happened last October 16 with a magnitude of 6.3. It was followed by the magnitude 6.6 quake that struck on October 29 also in Tulunan, North Cotabato. And firefighters are battling several active wildfires in California, appearing to make headway against a number of major blazes that have forced mass evacuations and power cuts. Two fast-moving infernos broke out early on Thursday in the southern part of the state, burning several homes and forcing people to flee. One, the Hillside Fire, was in San Bernardino, some 60 miles east of Los Angeles, while the other, the 46 Fire, was in neighboring Riverside County. Hundreds of firefighters, backed by water-dropping helicopters, were attacking the infernos, driven by record so-called Santa Ana winds that have prompted unprecedented warnings of extremely critical fire risk, the most severe category.
Right here is where our French doors were, and our bedroom would have been right here. Then a little bit up front, you would have your bathroom, and then this all right here on this side would have been the garage. You go up some steps, and then you have the living room, and then you have the kitchen on this side, and then you go up another flight of stairs, and then you had the 3 rooms upstairs. And it hurts, man. It hurts, but the fact that everybody was able to get out alive and not hurt, and I smelled smoke really strongly, so I woke up and I looked outside the window and I didn't see anything, so I was like, okay. Came back into the room, then I looked out my French doors, and this whole thing was lit up. It was glowing, and I woke up my wife and I said, hey, listen, get the kids. We have a folder with all of our documents, IDs, and social securities and birth certificates. Get in the car. And I'm going to go out here. I'm going to wake up these neighbors and let them know that it's coming.
That's my house. The blue and white house is my house. And my neighbor's house here burned down. I'm so sorry for that. But I thank God that my house is safe. Thank you to the firemen. They are the best in America. They saved us, they saved our house.
In Northern California, firefighters reported making significant progress against the massive Kincaid fire, which erupted on October 23 and has ravaged the Sonoma County wine region. The blaze, the biggest this season, has destroyed nearly 300 homes and other properties, including several wineries, and burned nearly 77,000 acres. It was 60% contained by Thursday. A mandatory evacuation order was lifted, allowing tens of thousands of residents to return to their homes. Fire crews, meanwhile, continued to battle a blaze in the Simi Valley, northwest of Los Angeles, where a fire broke out on Wednesday and came dangerously close to the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. About 30,000 people were forced to evacuate as the flames raged into the night, fueled by wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour. The winds were powerful enough to overturn some trucks on a nearby highway. Meanwhile, wildfires are raging across the Pantanal tropical wetlands in southern Brazil, one of the most biodiverse areas in the world and a major tourist destination, according to regional authorities. Take a look. The governor's office in the state of Mato Grosso do Sul said the fires were, quote, bigger than anything seen before in the region. And so far, more than 50,000 hectares have been affected. Now, the blazes follow other wildfires that environmental groups say ravaged millions of hectares in the Amazon rainforest in August. The statement from the governor's office said the situation was critical, with blazes ravaging 3 towns in the Pantanal, a popular eco-tourism spot. The coordinator of the National Risk Management Center, Paulo Barbosa de Souza, said the blaze, fed by wind and dry vegetation, was causing logistical difficulties. Meanwhile, firefighters worked to control a major fire that devastated a historic Japanese castle on the southern island of Okinawa. It destroyed large parts of the World Heritage Sites complex, according to local authorities. The fire was brought under control by early afternoon, a local fire department spokesman said, adding that the blaze had consumed more than 4,800 square meters of the castle complex. Let's take a look.
ですね、はい、昔からあるんで、そう本当目が覚めてニュース見たら燃えてて、なんでだろうっていう気持ちがやっぱりやっぱ夜間だったみたいなんで、警備とかその消火する機械が動かなかったのかなっていうのが疑問にありますね。
In other news, 7 South Koreans were missing on Friday after their helicopter took off from islets disputed with Japan and clashed into the sea moments later, according to Seoul officials. The aircraft had just picked an injured fisherman up from Dokdo, which is known as Takeshima in Japan, when it went down on Thursday night. A spokesman for the South's National Fire Agency said the South's Coast Guard, members of the National Fire Agency, and civilian boats were searching for survivors, while the Defense Ministry had also sent planes and divers to the area. The crashed chopper is a Eurocopter EC-225 made by the European Aerospace Corporation Airbus. Seoul has controlled patrol the islets of Dokdo in the Sea of Japan, or East Sea, since 1945, when Tokyo's brutal colonial rule on the peninsula ended, while Tokyo still claims sovereignty over them. The 7 people on board were 5 rescuers, the fisherman, and a civilian. In other news, a deeply divided Congress formally opened a new public phase of its investigation into Donald Trump on Thursday as U.S. lawmakers voted for the first time to advance the impeachment process targeting the U.S. president. The House of Representatives voted along party lines 232 to 196 to pass a resolution that lays out guidelines for the next stages of the impeachment process. Democrats are seeking to learn whether President Trump abused his power by pressuring a foreign government to investigate a domestic political rival. President Trump has repeatedly branded the inquiry illegitimate and said it is politically motivated, a theme he returned to in the wake of the vote. Take a look.
Those in favor, please say aye. What is at stake in all of this is nothing less than our democracy. When we have a president who says Article 2 says I can do whatever I want, that is in defiance of the separation of powers. That's not what our Constitution says.
Interest when a president refuses to defend the Constitution and does so for the purpose of advancing a personal or political agenda. The founders provided the remedy. I make no prejudgment as to whether that remedy will be warranted when we finish these hearings. I will wait until all the facts are put forward. We will undertake this duty with the seriousness it deserves.
If, after a fair and thorough inquiry, the allegations against President Trump are found to be true, they would represent a profound offense against the Constitution and against the people of this country. It is the duty of the House to vindicate the Constitution and to make it crystal clear to future presidents that this kind of conduct, if proven, is an affront to the great public that place their trust in him or her.
Democrats are trying to impeach the president because they are scared they cannot defeat him at the ballot box.
Clearly, there are people that we serve with that don't like the results of the 2016 election. That's their prerogative. But the country next year will be deciding who our president is going to be. It should not be Nancy Pelosi and a small group of people that she selects that get determined who's going to be our president.
This is a process that has been fundamentally tainted. The president has had no rights inside these hearings. His counsel has not been able to be present. So for them now to claim that they're suddenly going to open the process up, which, by the way, this resolution does not do. The resolution says that they're going to continue doing what they want to do. It gives authority for open hearings, but they cannot go back and fix what is a fundamentally tainted and unfair record.
They're trying to impeach the President of the United States less than 13 months before an election based on an anonymous whistleblower with no first-hand knowledge who has a bias against the President. It's reported that the whistleblower worked with Vice President Biden, and on it goes. The American people see this for what it is because the American people are fair people, they are just people, they are people with common sense, and they will not tolerate this.
The vote today was bipartisan, not to move forward. We have a Speaker of the House who said that impeachment would drive the country apart, it'd have to be bipartisan. There was one clear voice on where this Congress believes this should go. There's nothing the President did to be impeached. It's simply based upon election.
U.S. President Donald Trump waded into the British election campaign, launching a stinging attack on the country's main opposition leader and warning Prime Minister Boris Johnson that his EU divorce deal could imperil a future U.S.-UK trade agreement. Take a look. In unprecedented criticism of a candidate to be British Premier from a sitting president, Trump said that Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn would be so bad in the role. He also urged Johnson to unite with Eurosceptic hardliner Nigel Farage, a key figure in the 2016 referendum on European Union membership, who now leads the newly founded Brexit Party to deliver Britain's departure from the bloc.
Do you know what? I'd be right behind him, and let's hope. President, you've been a big fan of Brexit. Are you disappointed that the UK is not leaving today?
Well, I think Boris is, and I am, and you are. We're all disappointed. I think it's a good thing for the UK, the concept of what they're doing. I was in favor of it originally. We wanted to trade with UK, and they want to do trade with us. And to be honest with you, this deal, under certain aspects of the deal, you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't trade. Well, I mean, we can't make a trade deal with the UK, and we can be, because I think we can do many times the numbers that we're doing right now, and certainly much bigger numbers that you're doing under the European Union.
Well,
so
I'm like you.
I know Boris wants to be very careful with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem.
Because under certain ways we're precluded,
which
would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
frankly.
That's the problem with this deal. I tell you what, if he drops this dreadful deal, fights the general election on the basis that we want to just have trade with Europe but no political interference, do you know what? I'd be right behind him, and let's hope he gets he gets to that position. Against him, of course, the main rival is one Jeremy Corbyn, who I know didn't come along to see you at the state dinner when you were here. Now, Mr. Corbyn says...
Well, he wasn't invited. I certainly didn't know he was invited. I mean, look, I don't know him. I'm sure he's a lovely man, but, he's of a different persuasion, to put it mildly.
Well,
perhaps the opposite. He's at the opposite end.
He says if we have a trade deal, Donald Trump, it'll be a Trump Brexit, and Trump will come and take over our National Health Service. What do you have to say to him?
No, not at all. We wouldn't even be involved in that, no.
Now, within minutes of the interview airing, Mr. Corbyn shot back on Twitter that Trump is trying to interfere in Britain's election to get his friend Boris Johnson elected. Prime Minister Johnson agreed new divorce terms with the bloc's leaders earlier this month ahead of the country's scheduled departure on Thursday. But he was unable to push the plan through Parliament and instead opted to hold a snap pre-holiday election, blaming his Labour rivals for the latest Brexit delay and promising to now take the country out by a new January 31 deadline.
Well, of course, I'm incredibly frustrated that we're not able to get Brexit done today, but let's be in no doubt what's happened. We had a fantastic deal on the table. The House of Commons voted it through, but then they voted again for delay, and we went round it the whole exhaustively with members of Parliament. There was no way they were going to get this thing done. After 3.5 years, it was perfectly obvious to me that this Parliament is just not going to vote Brexit through. There are too many people who are basically opposed to Brexit, who want to frustrate it, and so the only thing we can really do now is go to our people, go to the country and say, come on, let's get this thing done, get it done, and then let's get on with our domestic agenda.
And the leader of Britain's Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, launched his campaign for the December 12 snap general election. He said that Prime Minister Boris Johnson is the only one to blame for his failure to deliver Brexit on time. Let's listen in.
Today is the 31st of October. It's all right, I'm just passing on information to you at this stage. The day that Boris Johnson promised we would leave the EU. He also said he would rather be dead in a ditch than delay beyond today. But he has failed, and that failure is his alone. Labour will get Brexit sorted within 6 months. We'll let the people decide whether to leave on a sensible deal or remain. It really isn't that complicated. Britain needs to get beyond Brexit and deal with the damage done to our communities by a decade of Tory cuts and economic failure. Boris Johnson thought he was being smart, holding this election in a dark and cold December. He thinks he won't go out to vote. He thinks he won't go out to campaign. Well, I say this to him. Labour will be out there in every city, every town and every village with the biggest and most confident campaign that our country has ever seen.
To Bolivia now, President Evo Morales called for a truce while an international body conducts an audit of Bolivia's disputed election results after clashes between rival groups left 2 dead and nearly 140 injured. A technical mission from the Organization of American States, or OAS, has begun an audit of the results that delivered Morales a controversial 4th term and sparked deadly riots. Opposition supporters have set up roadblocks while supporters of the presidential rivals have fought battles with their bare hands and makeshift weapons. Now, many people have gone on strike while demonstrators have also clashed with security forces. Bolivia was hit by unrest over the disputed results, which gave the current president Evo Morales enough votes to avoid the runoff. Despite the announcement that the numbers will be audited, the protests continued as the opposition demanded a new vote without Morales taking part. And China warned it would not tolerate any challenge to Hong Kong's governing system as it laid out plans to boost patriotism in the city and change how its leader is chosen or removed after months of pro-democracy protests. Beijing also said it would brook no foreign interference in Hong Kong affairs as it discussed the unrest in the semi-autonomous city at a major 4-day meeting of the Communist Party chaired by President Xi Jinping, according to a senior party cadre. Take a look.
绝不容忍任何挑战一国两制底线的行为，绝不容忍任何分裂国家、危害国家安全的行为，坚决防范和遏制外部势力干预港澳事务和进行分裂、颠覆、渗透、破坏活动。
You have mentioned two of these.
The central government in Beijing has so far voiced its confidence in Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam and the city police to put a lid on the increasingly violent protests. But all eyes have been on whether the party leadership will assert more control over the situation if the demonstrations spin out of control. The former British colony has been rocked by months of protests, with citizens lampooning the city's pro-Beijing leaders and erosion of basic rights. Shan Chunyao, director of the Hong Kong, Macau and Basic Law Commission, said party leaders at the meeting in Beijing agreed to further improve the central government system of governance over the region and maintain its long-term prosperity and stability. China, he added, would never tolerate any act that aims to split the country or endanger national security. Meanwhile, Lebanon's president said the country's next cabinet should include ministers picked on skills, not political affiliation, seemingly endorsing a demand by a 2-week-old protest movement for a technocratic government. Take a look. Michel Aoun's speech came as Lebanese protesters tried to block reopened roads and prevent their unprecedented non-sectarian push for radical reform from petering out. It followed the resignation of Prime Minister Saad Hariri's government on Tuesday, which had been met with cheers from crowds seeking the removal of a political class seen as corrupt, incompetent, and sectarian. But his speech was met with disdain by demonstrators in central Beirut, who, in response to his words, chanted the popular refrain of the 2011 Arab uprisings: "The people demand the fall of the regime." Now sparked on October 17 by a proposed tax on free calls made by Made through messaging apps such as WhatsApp, the protests have now morphed into a cross-sectarian street mobilization against an entire political class that has remained largely unchanged since the end of the country's 1975 to 1990 civil war. Thousands of Islamists rallied in Islamabad on Friday as several huge marches from across Pakistan converged on the capital to demand that Prime Minister Imran Khan's government step down. Security forces blocked main entry points with shipping containers, but the protesters streamed into the city, sitting out in squares and open spaces as they awaited instructions from their leaders. It represents the first major challenge to Prime Minister Khan's administration as it struggles to quell simmering public anger over a faltering economy and double-digit inflation. To other news now, an Indonesian man working for an organization which helped draft strict religious laws ordering adulterers to be flogged was himself publicly whipped after he was caught having an affair with a married woman. Take a look. Flogging is a common punishment for a range of offenses in the deeply conservative Aceh region on Sumatra Island, including adultery, drinking alcohol, and having gay or premarital sex. Aceh is the only region in the world's biggest Muslim-majority nation that imposes Islamic law, part of a 2005 autonomy deal with the central government that ended a decades-long separatist insurgency. On Thursday, a masked religious officer rained down 28 lashes on the back of Aceh Ulema Council MPU member Mukhlis after he was caught canoodling with a married woman last month. In other news, families of suspected Vietnamese victims in Lori death recall how they had to pay traffickers to smuggle their children to the United Kingdom. They said for up to $50,000, Vietnamese migrants can get the VIP package to Britain, flight, fake passport, and even a lawyer. Illegal but billed as safer than cheaper overland routes by people smugglers who provide a menu of options for those trying to reach the UK. Details of well-oiled smuggling routes spanning Vietnam to Europe have come under renewed scrutiny after 39 people were found dead in a truck in Britain. Take a look.
Là đi vịt là nghe nói đi lên xe 4 chỗ ngồi, nhưng mà cũng không phải đó là hồ lừa mà thôi, hồ lừa để hồ đi bạc mà thôi, còn nữa là cũng không phải đi vịt, dư hồ nói đó là đi công hết, còn ra đi là con hay nói mẹ ơi, con đi vịt chỗ yên tâm, nếu con mà đi vịt được đi chỗ yên tâm, hỏi bố mẹ ở nhà nó. Chẳng thai có tiền thì sợ vay mượn thì để trả lần thì sau cho con đi cho khỏe, chứ còn nếu mà biết con đi công đi là không cho con đi mất.
Our ABC correspondent in Switzerland, Mayan Glosser, takes us to an Aid to Humanity event there. Mayan?
The Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ continues its efforts in not only extending their help to the spiritual welfare of their fellow men, but also in providing assistance for the basic human needs whenever they possibly can. So on October 27, 2019, the Iglesia Ni Cristo here in Switzerland held a Line-Up Sana Mamayan or Aid to Humanity activity. The activity was held in the place of worship of Geneva. Switzerland is not only known for its breathtaking sceneries and world-class chocolates, but it is also considered as one of the richest countries in the world. Nevertheless, even in a country like Switzerland, there are still people who are in need of assistance or support. This is why, in preparation for the Aid to Humanity Evangelical Mission, INC members not only invited their friends and loved ones who are not yet members of the Church of Christ, but they also extended their invitation to the people benefiting from help from various charitable and social welfare organizations here in Switzerland. During the evangelical mission, the minister to verses read from the Bible taught a lesson on how man can solve one of his greatest problems.
That is the reason why in our lesson today, we taught the guests through the words of our Lord God written in the Holy Scriptures that even though people experience difficulties and hardships in this everyday life, only the Bible can give us the true solution to these problems. And the solution to this problem is to receive life eternal. As taught in the Bible, life eternal can only be received through our Lord Jesus Christ by having union with Him. And to have union with our Lord Jesus Christ is to become members of the Church of Christ, which is the body of our Lord Jesus Christ, and Christ being the head of the body.
After the evangelical mission, guests were given goodwill bags that contained scarves, gloves, toothbrushes, toothpaste, and other toiletries. They were also given sweaters, jackets, and other winter wear just in time for the cold season. Joy and happiness could truly be seen on the faces of those in attendance. The Church of Christ members wanted to show their love for the fellow man through this event, which was evidently felt by the guests during the event.
This is the love. The love, like.
In a society where man is faced with difficulties no matter where they may be, a helping hand goes a long way. Reporting from Geneva, Switzerland for Eagle News International Switzerland Edition, I'm Nan Glauser, 1 with 25.
Meanwhile, a successful evangelical mission and Aid to Humanity was held in San Carlos, Pilar, Bohol. Our ABC correspondent Jel Tadeja reports.
Joyful smiles and gratitude. These were received by the members of the Church of Christ here in province of Bohol in return of their kindness for giving relief packs to the residents of the town of Pilar, particularly in Barangay San Carlos.
Joyful smiles and gratitude. These were received by the members of the Church of Christ in the province of Bohol in return for their kindness for giving relief packs to the residents of the town of Pilar, particularly in Barangay San Carlos. This is how the members of Iglesia Ni Cristo celebrate the birthday of beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, all over the world in unity. The members of the church, led by the District Head Minister, Brother Azriel Pilaez, Brother Eranio Fabella, Second Head District Minister, and all the ministers and evangelical workers in the island of Bohol have long been preparing for this evangelical mission and aid to humanity that is presently held in Barangay San Carlos in order to give assistance to the fellow Boholanos. The said event, that started 2 in the afternoon, was participated by many active members and invited guests who not only received the words of God, but also were given relief packs with some of the essentials for every family's daily needs.
From the district of Bohol, we'd like to greet our most beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. Happy birthday po!
Kami po mga ministro at mga manggagawa sa distrito at distrito ng Bohol. Kasama na po ang lahat ng mga kapatid ay mainit na pababati sa pagsabi ng kaarawan ng pinakamamahal namin kapatid, pinakamahalagang tao, sapagkat ito ang araw ng kanyang kapanganakan at hindi lamang siya dahilan. Kami man na mga Iglesia ni Cristo dito po sa Bohol ay nakikigala, nakikihati sa kasiyahan kanyang naraan. Mahal na kapatid, isa lang po ang aming panalangin. Sana'y maibiyaya pa sa inyo ang mahabang buhay, isang makapangyarihang pamumuno sa aming lahat para marating po namin ang ipinangakong kaligtasan.
On behalf of all the EBC correspondents in Bohol, I am Jel Tejada. We are one with 25.
Iglesia Ni Cristo members from all over Japan gathered there to celebrate their first anniversary, and it's a program entitled Edification Through Voice and Music was held. Lou Stefan Omelda reports from Japan. Lou?
Iglesia Ni Cristo members from all over Western Japan gathered here to celebrate their first ever anniversary, and it's entitled Edification Through Voice and Music. Distance wasn't a big deal for the Iglesia Ni Cristo members in the western part of Japan, for they all gathered in Kasugai Cultural Center, Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture, to celebrate their first year of establishment through a special musical event. After a year of being established, members from this area of Japan have already conducted several activities that promote different kinds of advocacies, health and wellness, propagating their faith, giving inspiration to OFWs in Japan through a stage play, to name a few. And to top those, they conducted a concert that showcased the talents of their members and hopefully has achieved its goal, to edify their faith through voice and music. Coming from all generations, everyone was ready to present their own rendition of original Christian songs from the albums exclusively produced by Iglesia Ni Cristo. The songs belong to a variety of genres: pop, rap, soul music, and many more. Some of them even performed dance numbers. According to the members, these kinds of events don't only help them showcase their talents, but also edify their faith. Housed in a huge and beautiful venue, the members were seen all smiles as they enter and watch a few pre-show performances warm up the stage. After a prayer and some words from a minister in the church, a grand opening performance from the members in Korea had everyone at the edge of their seats, singing the song entitled "Huwag Patayin ang Ningas ng Espiritu Santo," which also means "Do not extinguish the fire of the Holy Spirit." It might have been difficult for those who attended and performed, especially for those who traveled from very far places just to be there. It seemed more of a fulfilling moment for them, because aside from the fact that it was the first time for Nagoya, Japan, to conduct such a huge event, it also marked the beginning of more years to come in their service in this area of Japan in their church. All the members were grateful that they had a very successful event. From Nagoya, Japan, this is Lou Omelda for Eagle News International, and I am one with 25.
And Eagle News, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back. Hong Kong confirmed it had plunged into its first recession since the global financial crisis, as months of seething pro-democracy protests and the U.S.-China trade war exact a heavy toll on the financial hub. The semi-autonomous Chinese city has been upended by nearly 5 months of huge, often violent pro-democracy demonstrations with little end in sight, as Beijing and city leaders adopt a hardline approach. Clashes between protesters hurling bricks and petrol bombs at police wielding tear gas and rubber bullets have become a weekly occurrence, hammering the city's once solid reputation for stability and safety. The unrest has hit the city's tourist and entertainment industries hard, compounding economic woes that were already being caused by the global trade war. Now, figures released by the government showed gross domestic product shrank 3.2% in the third quarter compared with the previous period when it saw a 0.4% drop. Now that means the city is experiencing a technical recession with 2 back-to-back periods of contraction. It is the first time the city has witnessed a recession since early 2009 at the height of the financial crisis. Year-on-year GDP also shrank 2.9%, its sharpest drop in a decade. Bruno Le Maire says the possibility of a merger between Fiat and PSA is good news for the French industry and for the European industry, adding that no job will be cut in the event of an alliance. Let's listen in.
I can guarantee that we will be very vigilant, and I think that on any issue and on all other issues that I had to face here as a Minister of Economy, I already given the evidence that I will be vigilant, that no job will be cut, and that we are very vigilant about the future of the site. And we have made clear from the very beginning that for the French state, the priority was the reinforcement of the alliance between Renault and Nissan. And on the other side, we are creating a new world champion with the possibility of having a merger between Peugeot and Fiat. That's good news for the French industry and for the European industry too. There are clearly a complementary approach between the two automotive industries, between Fiat and PSA. When you are looking at the access to the market, PSA has a very good access to the European market. Fiat has a very good access to the American market. So you can rely on a complementary approach between the two industrials.
Peugeot maker PSA and Fiat Chrysler unveiled on Thursday a plan for a 50-50 merger of their operations they said would generate billions in savings without factory closures, as it creates the world's 4th largest car manufacturer. President Duterte, who will fly to Bangkok, Thailand, will attend at least 9 events during the 3-day 35th ASEAN Summit and related summits, which starts on Saturday. In a statement, Chief Presidential Legal Counsel and Presidential Spokesperson Salvador Panelo said the President will attend the ASEAN Plenary Summit, the 22nd ASEAN-China Summit, the 16th ASEAN-India Summit, the 10th ASEAN-UN Summit, the 22nd ASEAN Plus 3 Summit, the 7th ASEAN-US Summit, the 14th East Asia Summit, the 22nd ASEAN-Japan Summit and the 3rd Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP Summit. Mr. Panelo explained that the delegation, meanwhile, is excited to witness the President make our country and citizenry proud once again as he discusses his views and shares his insights on pressing matters that will be tackled in the summits. He also said Executive Secretary Salvador Medaldea has been designated as officer in charge while the President is abroad. He, however, stressed that the Chief Executive remains on top of the situation, monitoring the situation in the Philippines, especially the earthquake-hit areas of Mindanao. And Southeast Asian leaders will race to get a sprawling China-backed trade pact over the line at a regional meeting in Thailand this weekend as Beijing's bruising trade war with Washington rumbles on. Take a look. If signed, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, will be the world's largest trade pact and is seen as a way for Beijing to cement trade ties in Asia as Washington retreats from the region. Leaders are hoping for a breakthrough at RCEP talks at this weekend's meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations after 7 years of negotiations over the deal, which would comprise 30% of global commerce and half the world's population if signed. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang will attend the 3-day summit in Bangkok, officially kicking off Saturday amid a backdrop of heavy security, where simmering tensions in the South China Sea will also top the agenda. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be there as he battles fears at home that key industries like metal, textiles, and dairy could be hard hit by RCEP, which loops in 10 Southeast Asian economies along with Japan, India, New Zealand, and Australia. This week's ASEAN Summit comes as Washington and Beijing also are pushing for the signing of a partial agreement in a bid to roll back months of tit-for-tat tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods that have rattled both economies. Now, RCEP is seen as a way for China to assert its trade dominance in Asia after the U.S. pullout of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, in 2017, which would have been the world's biggest free trade deal. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back. Climate experts gathered in Geneva for a high mountain summit to discuss their concerns about the devastating impact of climate change on those areas where temperature increase is often magnified. Take a look.
We're reaching a crisis on the Earth because of the changes in our high mountains. Temperature increases are often magnified at higher elevation, and so there are mountains around the world which have already sustained 3 to 4 degrees of temperature increase, and well above the global average increases of closer to 1 degree. We see this in the declining snowpacks, the shorter snow-covered period, the rapidly melting and retreating glaciers that are seen in every part of the world, and the changing rainfall patterns, which are together associated with an increase in floods. It can be rain on snow floods or rainfall-driven floods where they never happened before, or glacial lake outburst floods.
And it's not only the people living in the high mountain, but it's also the people living downstream. So an area like Tibet, when you look at it, there's probably, a million people living in the high altitude component, but you're talking about 2 billion people living downstream being directly affected by what's happening in the high mountain region.
In a call for action at the end of this week's High Mountain Summit to tackle the global warming causing glaciers to retreat along with snow fields, permafrost, and associated ecosystems, collectively called the cryosphere, the World Meteorological Organization and partners announced they would step up commitments on the issue of water security and natural disasters linked to melting ice in mountain regions. In addition, the problem of disappearing ice caps is stretching from mountainsides to urban communities downstream as glacial melt-dependent pastures become parched and avalanches, floods, and other disasters snuff out lives and weaken local economies. WMO pledged to lead the effort to stop the trend at the conclusion of the three-day summit in Geneva to address these changes to water systems and supplies. In other news, French adventurer Charles Cedric embarked on a mission to cross Australia's Simpson Desert in a 100% solar-powered buggy. Take a look. The Philippine Department of Health said the number of dengue cases in the country has breached the 360,000 mark just days into the final quarter of the year. Based on the latest dengue surveillance report, the DOH said there were 360,646 cases reported from January 1 to October 12. The DOH declared a national dengue epidemic on August 6, 2019 due to the rise in the number of cases. Earlier, DOH Secretary Francisco Duque said they were expecting about 240,000 cases to be recorded for 2019, given the usual spike every 3 years. Let's now focus on sports. Here's Ben Bernaldez.
Written off after a 1931 start and given a 0.01% odds maker chance to win the World Series, the Washington Nationals ignored the doubters and captured a fairy tale championship. The Nationals rallied to defeat Houston 6-2 on Wednesday to capture Major League Baseball's best-of-7 final 4-3 in a reversal of fortune unseen in more than a century. Not since the 1914 Boston Braves had a club been so far below .500 and battled back to seize the trophy, the Nats matching Houston's 74 wins after May 24 for the most in baseball. But manager Dave Martinez stressed going 1-0 today and seeing what happened from there, the result proved historic. The last time a Washington team won the World Series was 1924 when Calvin Coolidge was a U.S. president and the Roaring Twenties were in full swing and Al Jolson and George Gershwin were chart-topping musicians. And the Senators beat the New York Giants in a dramatic Game 7. In basketball, two-time NBA Most Valuable Player Stephen Curry had a CT scan on his broken left hand on Thursday, and the Golden State Warriors will consult with specialists to determine how long he'll be sidelined. The Warriors superstar guard was injured Wednesday when he was fouled by Phoenix center Aaron Baines as he drove to the basket in a 121-110 loss to the Suns. The San Jose Mercury News reported Thursday that the Warriors expected to have a timetable for Curry's return depending on whether he needs surgery or not. Even before Curry was injured, the Warriors, winners of 3 titles in the past 5 seasons, were struggling to find their form. With Kevin Durant departed as free agent, while Klay Thompson will miss most of the season with a torn knee ligament, center Kevin Looney is also sidelined. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Bernaldez and I am on with 25.
Thank you, Ben, and that's the news for tonight. I'm Alma Angeles. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, thank you. We'll see you soon. Always one with 25. Good night.